Sorry about all the trouble. That figures, right? That's the way it goes.
Can you hear
But
him?
can you hear me?
I
Can you
can
hear
hear
him?
you, yes. Let me, anybody, if you, I know you guys are muted, but if you want to raise your hand, as long as he can, you can hear him. Yeah,
Can you
they
hear
can
me?
hear you. Yes, they
One,
can.
two, three. All righty. So, well, the upside to all this is you don't have to look at me. I just, so who am I? So, Jack, that it does figure that we have technical difficulties. So Michael Parks, as far regarding to this job, this work that we have, our ministry today, it really extends back to my time as a pastor in throughout the 80s and 90s, in mission work, beginning in Mexico, as God continued to call me out further and further. And in the course of that time, I was also an engineer. And then about 1998, I left the local ministry, and then I ended up going to Kosovo. I started my full-time work in relief and development today. And then right after I got back from Kosovo, I got married to my beautiful bride, Sherry, and we now have 5 children, and 4 of them are still at home. And it's just it's a great ministry, and God has really blessed us.
Okay. Dan, how about you? Who are you?
So I'm Dan Emig, and we live in Colorado right now, and we have 3 children. My wife and I have 3 kids. Jonathan's 22, Brian's 20, and Eliana's 18. And we began our journey with international work and ministry back in '87, basically, when I was in Yugoslavia before the breakup of Yugoslavia. And God began to break my heart for the poor and the needy starting then. And since then, I've been able to live in Romania for 9 years with my family and continue on. We came back from Romania back in '08 and started our work in India and Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Serbia and Nepal. And we're expanding now with Frontier Partners with our work in the Middle East, with Kurdistan, Iraq, and to Lebanon.
Great. So why are you doing this work, and why is this work important to each of you? What is their future going to be like if we continue to be involved there? What motivates you to do this important work?
Okay, so I'm still going blind here. It's really important to me. As Dan talked about his heart being broken for the desperately suffering. It's the same happened to me in the mid '90s, and it kept driving me to go further and further. As I was working in southern Sudan, in the war region, where the Southerners were being attacked by the Northern because of their faith, because of the land, because of the oil. And it was just the desperately suffering where I actually was engaging people who were literally dying in front of us as we were trying to care for them with a medical clinic. And so that's, I guess I got to step back one more. The bottom line is my faith. I believe that God has called me to do this piece of work in his kingdom, this mission, the kingdom of God, to get into places that are broken and people are suffering. So because of that, I'm willing to take the challenge, and I actually oftentimes enjoy the adventure of engaging people who are suffering, because it's just a wonderful thing to be able to help the desperately suffering.
It's a follow-up. I echo what Mike just said. I think that we're called to the gospel, we're called to the kingdom, and that's what motivates us to get out there and keep moving ahead. On top of that, I think that my experience with Kurds and Yazidis is that in many ways they are how do I say this? They're kind of the stepchildren of the Middle East. They're abandoned in every possible way, and they keep getting brutalized by different militants that come in, or different nationalities or nations that take advantage of them. And so both the Kurds and the Yazidis are in a lot of ways nationless and still want to form their own nations. But I've just seen them lose everything. I mean, their homes, their families, members, the communities or the vocations and all the economic loss that goes with that. And so that's why I do what I do. Daphne?
Oh, sorry, I got muted. Thank you. That's really encouraging from both of you, and helps us to understand the needs in a great way as far as their soul needs and their practical needs. We want to know also, many of us live in the US, there's a lot going on, COVID's happening now. How do you balance the needs overseas with the current needs that are here in the United States? How do you explain why you can't do everything?
Okay, I'm sorry, Daphne. I had a really hard time hearing you.
So Mike, the question is about balancing needs of the U.S. with global needs. How do we do that?
Correct. Excellent question. Excellent. You know, we get that question a lot. I get that question often, and you know, to me, it's not necessarily even a balance. It's a calling. You know, in the U.S., we have the resources. We have a lot of things that, for example, when a disaster strikes in the U.S., the amount of response from the federal government, the state government, the counties, the churches, other private organizations that engage are tremendous and far greater than a lot of the situations that we see around the world. So our place in the humanitarian world is to serve victims of wars, natural disasters, and unreached, unengaged communities that are impoverished or oppressed and persecuted. And they have very little assistance. So when we engage in a region, we actually, even in a war zone, we will go find communities that are less served, underserved, or not served at all. So it's more of that our calling is to get out into these unreached, unengaged areas, and that's the way. That's how we balance that.
Okay.
I think for me, I see them as one and the same. I mean, when you start opening your heart up to seeing need and needs, all kinds of needs are prevalent. And so I think for Mike and I, we just have experienced, you know, travel and being overseas internationally, and we see the acuteness and the absolute abject poverty needs spiritually, physically, relationally, monetarily, of these people. And so, you know, we are quickened to move that direction. Having said that, we also do things locally. I mean, I'm helping. I was part of a distribution just yesterday for Yazidis and Kurds right here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So it's an issue of the heart moving toward any kind of need. And for us, we invite you to be a part of this, you know, us helping this meet these kind of needs.
That's very helpful. Are you a worthy investment? Is Frontier Partners a worthy investment? And why should we trust you and your team by partnering alongside you?
Yeah, that's a good question also. You know, there's several reasons. I think as far as we are a good investment. We work really hard to get money and resources into the hands of the people. We don't have a lot of infrastructure. We don't have a big staff that's you know, as solid. We keep it lean as we can, as reasonable in order to get the job done. But also, we are financially accountable and trustworthy. We one of the ways is we have a third party, Global Service Associates, that handles our finances and helps, and they're part of the checks and balances. We work as a team. Those of us that you hear on the phone right now, Daphne, Dan, and I, as well as others, we don't go off and do things rogue. We work as a team, and we're accountable to one another. And we're also accountable to the people on the field, our workers, our partners. They know the money flow. They know how things are working. We coordinate the relief. We coordinate the projects and how the money goes, and they are accountable to us. So there's a lot of checks and balances in this that keep us accountable. But I just want to say also that it's an investment in changing lives for the good. Through saving lives with disaster relief or with transformational community development, which we bring communities from poverty to self-sustainability and prosperity. When people invest in FBI Fortune Partners, they are investing in the lives of these people.
Good. I think for me, Daphne, the question is excellent. I think that for me, I see investment as, I think the word that comes to mind is development. I think that development for me is key. I see a long-term strategy. We go in there for a 3 to 5 year period, and we transform the thinking and the mentality of people's lives. And that carries weight down the road. So they are, in a sense, transforming themselves as they learn and grow and see their potential. So for me, it's development. I know we do disaster relief and we do COVID-19, things like that, but our long-term strategy is a worthy investment. And in my mind, one of the best investments, because we are doing it long-term, long haul, with definite specific goals in mind down the road.
That's great. So what would you say are your most important needs today, the current needs that you have for the work that's being done? And I'll let you go ahead with that first.
Okay, yes, so I'll start. Right now, some of the things, with the COVID virus situation, it's affected the entire world. No matter how people feel about the different types of responses, it's been devastating to a lot. So we know even in our own country the hardship that it's creating. It's even harder for the refugees and the Yazidis and displaced people. They had very little resources, so we've been working at assisting them with actual education, COVID education and response training. We also purchase soap, cleaning supplies, masks, and these sort of things to assist them to cope and with this virus. We also, just because of this, they're in need of back into basic items such as food and clothing and supplies like that too. So that we're doing that. We're also engaged in translation materials for the local church. We're partnering with World Impact out of Wichita, and to get those materials, we're working and engaged in agricultural projects. We also, it's been delayed, but we're also in the process of doing business training and funding startup businesses as soon as travel opens back up.
Very cool.
I think the question for me is, when COVID-19 is over, Mike and I hope to be there as soon as possible. So funding for travel is needful, and we would like to be there within weeks or days or even of COVID-19 allowing travel again. So financial support, I think that we also desperately need to hire at least one local staff person who's full-time, maybe part-time, so a salaried staff person that we really need to do that. And so that would be another thing.
By a local staff person, you mean on the ground in Iraq or Lebanon?
Yeah, like for example, on the video you just saw, Farce. And so Farce would be an excellent example of someone we could hire part-time or whatever, who knows TCD, who knows disaster relief, who knows COVID-19, who knows how to help these entrepreneurs, because he is an entrepreneur, get going. And so someone like that would be really astute at being able to, a salaried kind of person like that. So,
right. Two people have asked this question. How has the recent pandemic changed how you minister in Iraq and Lebanon? And also, how has it impacted the work being done on the ground? So how you're doing it, but also how people are doing it, your team on the ground are doing it.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm going to have to ask you to repeat that question because I couldn't understand.
Okay. How has COVID-19 affected the way the staff there and you and I do ministry and work?
Yeah, that's a good question. The way right now, currently, obviously, we're working remotely. Like all of us, we probably zoomed out of conference calls. We spend a lot of time communicating via these sort of message with our people in the field. They were on total lockdown, but because of their work with us, they've been able to get special permission using mask and social distancing to go in and continue to teach and train and to bring supplies to the Yazidis. So it's affected us a lot, though. Like I said, we had plans on traveling there, but all the international travel was shut down in Iraq and in Lebanon. We could not travel. Hopefully, like Dan said, we'll be able to get back on the road soon. And it's put a glitch in our plans, but God's got a bigger plan, and I expect that all things will work together for good.